So we're going to make stuffed flatbreads, and we're gonna make a dip with those stuffed flatbreads as well. So we've got some soy yogurt, we've got some cucumber here, and some lemon. So we're gonna make a nice little dip. We're gonna make our own flatbreads. We're gonna make them in a pan, which is gonna be so easy and so speedy. You don't need any yeast or anything like that. And I'm gonna show you. We're gonna put some cheese in it, some vegan cheese. So the first thing I wanna do is I'm gonna make my filling. So yes, let's get on with the filling. And I've got my trusted pan here, which I'm gonna put onto medium heat because I'm gonna fry some onion. And I decided for red onion because, quite frankly, red onion is just the nicer onion, isn't it? And I'm gonna go for the whole red onion, just because there can't be ever too much onion in any recipe. Alright, so I'm just chopping them up, and I'm chopping them up fairly roughly, so they don't need to be like super small, but you know, chopped up enough to saute them. Good, got my onions in there. Then I'm gonna chop a couple of cloves of garlic because, again, every great meal starts with some onion and some garlic. So, and I'm just gonna add that to my sizzling onions. So I just took that off the heat because I don't want this to over fry. And I'm gonna chop a few mushrooms. So those are just normal champignon style mushrooms. I do not dispose of the stem, I think it's the stem. So I don't dispose of the stem because it's perfectly fine to eat. It's got quite a lot of nutrition in there. And if you chop it up anyways, you won't really see the difference. So I use the stem and I just chop it up, and we're gonna chop this fairly fine, but not like super fine. So, and then I'm gonna start chopping up. So I've got 4 mushrooms, which are fairly big mushrooms, so they are not quite palm size, but they will be more than enough. Here we go. So that's 4 mushrooms in here with the stems. And I'm going to add just a tiny bit more water here. And put that back so we can continue frying this. So I'm just dicing up a medium yellow pepper. Again, just roughly dice this up. Doesn't need to be super pretty or anything. Just make sure it's about about the same size here. And I'm gonna pop them straight in. And now I want to give this some flavor. So what I've got is a hot curry madras powder. So I'm going to use half a teaspoon of that. I'm going to use some salt and some pepper. And I've got some paprika, which I'm also going to pop in. And I'm going to stir to make sure I'm going to combine this. And I keep frying it for another minute or so to get those flavors out and to make the spice release the flavor. Okay, so I'm going to take this off and turn my heat off. And this is what it looks like. You can see this with a lot of steam. So I've got my spices in there, and this is pretty much my filling for my bread. So I'm going to put this aside off the heat and just leave it there to rest for a minute. And then I'm going to take away my chopping board because we're going to make some very quick flatbread dough. So for this we need some plain flour, simple and plain flour. So I'm going to use 2 cups so 2 cups, 2 US cups of plain flour. This one. There's 2. That's that. Then 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I've got a teaspoon here. And we're gonna go with 2 heaped teaspoons because we want to make sure it rises and it fluffs up. Then we're gonna go with a little bit of salt, about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm gonna take my cup and put 1/2 cup of water, and into the water, and this is where we actually use oil. I'm gonna use oil, very, very rare occasion. And I'm gonna use a tablespoon, and I'm gonna use 2 tablespoons of oil. You can use any kind of oil, vegetable oil or coconut oil if you fancy. I've got some olive oil here, so I'm just going to use olive oil. I like the flavor of olive oil and it's really, really nice to cook with, so we're going to use that. And I'm gonna combine the oil with the water a little bit. Obviously it's not going to fully combine, but and then I'm going to mix the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients and start making our dough. So, and this is coming together really, really easily, nicely. I'm going to use a spoon in the beginning to get this together and also to scrape the sides of the flour. Yeah, and once I get it into this consistency, so it's a little bit flaky but it's coming together, I'm gonna take my hands and get dirty with it. And this is one of my favorite things, just to use my hands and make a dough. Get this together. So I make sure that I keep scraping the sides, so I'm using all the flour and everything. I really, really hate food waste, as you probably can imagine by now. So, and this already looks really nicely and fluffy, but I want to make sure I roll this out on a clean surface. So I'm going to get a little bit of flour here. Oops. Onto my surface because it's still a little bit sticky at the moment, but once we start kneading it onto our surface, we're going to have a little bit more flour on the surface, and it starts getting a little bit more workable. I keep adding a little bit of flour to this until I'm happy that it's not sticky anymore, and just keep kneading for probably like a few minutes, depending on how much time and how wet your dough still is. This is what my dough looks like. It's nice and fluffy. It's like a little bit sticky still, but I'm not bothered by that because I feel this is more than fine and dry enough to roll out. So one last time, I'm going to add a little bit of flour onto my surface here. Press it down. Now I'm going to make a little bit of space, and then I start rolling out my lovely, lovely dough. I'm going to actually halve this at this stage. Put one piece aside and keep rolling the other piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reuse this bowl, and I'll just put my filling into this bowl. First of all, it will help cooling it down, and I also will need my pan to then fry the flatbread. So I'm going to put this back onto my hob, which I'm going to put onto medium heat now. You don't want to have it full whack. It's already still warm. So I'm just gonna keep it on medium heat. I don't use any oil, and I wouldn't use any oil to make this in any pan, because trust me, you won't need oil to make that flatbread in a pan. So I use my filling, and I'm actually gonna add some cheese into it, so it has kind of cooled down quite a bit, which is good because that's what we want. So I'm gonna add some cheese. So when we then make our flatbreads, it's gonna be nice and melted in the middle. That's the plan. This is what our filling looks like. And now we use our flatbread, and I'm just gonna add some filling into the middle part of it. Be generous, okay? And then I'm gonna fold the corners over. We're gonna have a stuffed flatbread. So, and I'm gonna very, very gently, so that I don't squash anything out, but I want to make sure I'm gonna combine this dough. Roll over it. Yes, and here we go. So this is our filled flatbread, which I'm now gonna add to my pan. Again, be really, really gentle with it, and make sure when you transfer it to the pan, it's not breaking. And there we go. So I am gonna attempt to flip my first bread because I don't want it to burn. So I'm gonna see if I can. Oh yeah. Whoops. Yes. It's baking nicely. So I filled my second bread and just very, very gently start rolling over this to make sure I don't even break it, but I still want to make sure I get the dough incorporated here with all the bits that are in there. Okay, so I'm gonna take my second flatbread, which again looks really, really nice. So usually they are quite good to fill. Make sure you don't overfill them. That's the only really, really important tip I have to give you. But yeah, it's holding together really nicely, as you can see. This is what it looks like. It's holding together quite nicely and it's browning nicely. And I'm gonna make my yogurt dip. So the first thing I want to do is take my cucumber. So, and I leave the skin on because and most times I actually just give things a small wash like carrots and leave the skin on, because I think the skin actually gives you again so many like nutrients and minerals that are just so really, really good for you. So don't peel your vegetables, eat the skin wherever you can and where it's possible. Okay, so I try to chop this fairly small because it's a dip, so I don't want like huge chunks. So I'm opening up my avocado, get the pulp out. Okay, and then I just roughly but like dice my avocado while it's in the shell or in the peel. And then I take a spoon and just take it out of the shell. And then we're just gonna roughly incorporate that with our cucumber. Not with this. We're gonna add some lemon juice, and I mean lemon juice is just like really yummy. So we're just gonna have some really yummy dip here. So I'm going to incorporate this a little bit more, and then I'm going to add some yogurt. So this is plain soy yogurt. If you like coconut yogurt, it's really, really nice with coconut as well, or any kind of yogurt that you've got. So I'm going to add probably 4 spoons of yogurt, tablespoons, and just incorporate that in here. And that's perfect. Perfect consistency as well. Oh, salt. Some pepper to taste. So here we go. So we've got avocado, yogurt, salt, pepper, lemon juice, and some cucumber. Easy peasy lemon squeezy dip. All right, I think this looks so pretty. Look at this. So this is our flatbread. Here we go. Thank you. Bye bye.